The issues affecting you. Revealed, explained, discussed. Now on WGAL 8 in Focus.
Hello, I'm Susan Shapiro. Much of our lives are spent on computers, phones, and the internet. Scammers know that, and they're on the attack. Microsoft reports its customers face 600 million attacks each day. That's more than 219 trillion attacks each year. Tonight, we're talking with a cybersecurity expert about how your data is breached and what you can do to protect yourself. We're putting cybersecurity in focus. Joining us now is Scott Davis, the chairman and the president of Cybersecurity Association of Pennsylvania. Thanks so much for joining us for a very important topic that really affects everybody. But first, what is this association?
Yeah, the Cybersecurity Association of Pennsylvania was founded back in 2020, right during the COVID era, where we saw a lot of cyber attacks, breaches, and a need for better education around cybersecurity. Our goal and our mission is really helping the community secure Pennsylvania's digital future.
What do we mean by cybersecurity?
So when you think of cybersecurity, it's over-encompassing, where it covers all the digital aspects of your life. And when you think of what you have as far as a digital footprint, it's more and more. Your phone's tracking your steps, it's counting your heart rate, it's counting the different things when you're wearing a smartwatch, the smart devices in your home. All the different things that you have leave digital footprints. And when you combine that with your social media, the data for work, your email, your posts, your pictures, you have a pretty large digital footprint out there. The role of cybersecurity is that protection of that data, the infrastructure behind it, to make sure that your data stays secure.
The way you describe it, it's almost impossible to get around having that footprint.
It's, in today's world, I think it's almost impossible.
Like it or not, it's out there. We hear a lot about the dark web. What do we mean by that?
So when you go to www.facebook.com or google.com, you're on a small portion of the actual internet and what makes it up. When you think of when you're accessing one of those sites, you're just going to someone else's computer. And that's really all it is. That's what the cloud is. It's somebody else's computer. Now, it could be Microsoft's or Amazon's or Rackspace or anyone else's, but you're just going to someone else's computer. The dark web is a segment of the internet that is not as centralized as the main internet is. So you may be using an IP address or a special browser to get to it, but it's an area that is connected and works just like the normal internet. It's just a lot slower, but what you run into is a place that people are doing more illegal or illicit activities.
More nefarious kinds of things going on.
I can go into the dark web and there's sites similar to like eBay, and I can buy social security numbers, credit card numbers, personal identifiable information, health records, even physical objects that get shipped to my house.
How do you know you're on the dark web?
Someone would have to knowingly download typically a browser extension or a VPN type tool. A VPN tool is saying that instead of being at my house and on my main internet connection, I'm routing it a different way. So you would have to make some steps to actually jump onto the dark web. It's not as simple as just typing in darkweb.com.
All right, you've thrown around some initials here, VPN. That's a protected network, correct?
Yeah, the virtual private network, or a VPN, is what a lot of businesses utilize for employees that travel, where when they're jumping on the Wi-Fi at Starbucks or a Panera Bread, they use a VPN connection to encrypt their traffic, so that data that they're looking at and transmitting stays secure behind that firewall that's in the office.
And that is safer, isn't it?
That adds a tremendous layer of security.
Is there any way to not be, subjected to all of this, to be, any of this kind of thing on the internet?
I think anymore in today's world, everything is online. Your phone lines have moved from the traditional, analog line that carried just the voice, and everything now is being encrypted and transmitted digitally. So your voice over IP, your phone calls are digitally archived and digitalized. Your social media, your phones, your watches, the IoT devices. If you have smart light bulbs, smart curtains, smart fridges, everything today is internet connected.
We love most of it, but it's hard to to keep abreast of all of it. But we're going to talk about phishing, vishing, smishing, all those things, and hackers and how you can protect yourself coming up.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
We continue our conversation with Scott Davis, the chairman and the president of Cybersecurity Association of Pennsylvania. I mentioned terms like phishing, smishing, vishing. Tell me the difference between all of those and what they do.
Yeah, I think as far as education goes, everyone knows phishing. Phishing is that traditional attack that comes across an email. But smishing, which is SMS-based phishing, is based on your text messages. So it may be a Comcast or a fake Comcast text saying, hey, I'm going to be at your location in 2 hours, and sending a text message kind of as a way to confirm. But you also get, a lot of times, your shipment wasn't able to be delivered, click the link right in your text message. You don't have that same level of mousing over and seeing, is it actually taking me to ups.com? So there's that level of sophistication from a smartphone where I'm more apt to click on it if it comes across in a text message form. And vishing is spoofing a phone call or a technique. And one of the scams you probably talked about here before is someone calling in and a voice that sounds like a granddaughter or a son, a daughter, when it's not actually that person. One that we hear about the most is probably so-and-so's in prison, here they are, can you wire me some money so I can make bail and get out? And if you're not educated and not thinking about it, people send money. People give their credit card number right over the phone. And when you look at what AI has enabled the cyber criminals out there, is I can take a couple TikTok videos, put it into a voice processor, and I have that audio recording. And then all I need is your phone number to call, and I'm imitating that person.
It's unbelievable how sophisticated these hackers have gotten.
Absolutely. The aspect of social engineering, though, is not new. You can go back to the Trojan horse. And it's one of the most common examples I use, but if the king didn't like horses and loved pigs and you show up with a horse, he's not going to open that gate. He's not going to open that door for the army to come in. But by knowing a little bit about that king, that he loved horses and he would love this gift of a giant wooden horse, those gates were open, the army was allowed in. So social engineering is not new. It's the techniques that the cyber criminals are using, tying emotion into it, that is seeing the record setting of the scams that are successful out there.
Playing on people's emotions, their fears,
Absolutely.
aren't those the traditional things they play upon?
Absolutely. It's, hey, I need to know information. We saw during COVID a tremendous amount of the need to know what was closed, what was open, what I can do, what I can't do, outweighed all of the training. You see it around the Super Bowl and other large events, sending out media messages saying, hey, I'm in a partnership with the NFL. We're giving 50,000 T-shirts out. All you have to do is validate your information here. And you get that in an email. It's like, hey, I love the Eagles. I love what they're doing. I got to click that link. I want to show my pride.
Everybody, is excited by hearing that, maybe. So what can you do to protect yourself from things like that?
Yeah, with social engineering, it really comes down to education. If it sounds too good to be true, 9 times out of 10, it's too good to be true. And just think before you click. Don't rush yourself. Don't think about it. Process what you're reading. Did I have an Amazon shipment scheduled to be delivered today? Did I have something that was shipped over UPS? During tax season, did you file your taxes yet? Because you're going to get text messages, emails, and probably some phone calls encouraging you, hey, your income tax return's ready to go. I just need to verify, or I need your credit card information to finalize it. Just think before you give information. And when in doubt, hang up and call back who they said they're calling from. If they said, hey, it's your bank, call your bank directly on their number. Don't call the number that's in the email, because I can put my fake number in that email.
Sometimes I think we get those text messages about tolls and all kinds of things. You're just a little curious. Well, what happens? But don't do it. Don't be curious.
Yeah, worst case, go to the PA Turnpike website, log into your EasyPass account, make sure that your account is in good standing. The text messages, and we're seeing a lot of them right now coming across saying your EasyPass funds are depleted. And it's asking you to click a link, put a credit card number in, and add funds. But what you're doing is you're giving that criminal actor now your credit card number, your PIN, and other information.
Yeah, other information, that's for sure. Where is this criminal activity emanating from?
It's all over. There's not one specific area that it's more prominent in or another. Most of the attacks in the United States come from overseas. Russia, Ukraine, those general areas have a lot of attacks, but there's attackers in Pennsylvania, in the United States, that are doing the exact same thing. if you can understand the role of emotion and how you can get someone to click that link, you can have success in it. The challenge is if you're doing it in the United States and you're a U.S. citizen, you face the crimes and the criminal justice system of the United States. So most attacks happen overseas because it's harder to get that person here to face their consequences.
And unfortunately, a lot of these hackers don't get caught or prosecuted.
And yeah, hackers will hit a point where, they get greedy and they take it too far and they get caught. But most of them know when to stop. They cover their tracks well. And the best defense against them is proper education and having conversations like this and just sharing how you can identify those threats.
Making people aware.
Yes.
All right, well, stay with us. We're going to talk more about social media and how you can protect you and your family on social media.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
We're talking with Scott Davis, the chairman and president of Cybersecurity Association of Pennsylvania, about all things cybersecurity and being online, which all of us are walking around. I have my phone back here, but with a computer in our pockets or in our purses. And obviously a lot of stuff is done on social media. So it's obviously helped people connect, but what do you think are the downsides or the dangers of social media?
I think the downside for social media is it has the capability of revealing so much about you. We're posting pictures, our family information, pets' names, all the common security questions you have to validate your account with a bank, for example. You're listing and sharing publicly right there on social media in picture form 9 times out of 10. So when you look at that, you're establishing puzzle pieces that a cyber criminal can use to gain an image of who you are. And when the puzzle's enough complete, that's when you're actually seeing that your identity has been breached or is being used to open up different financial accounts.
I was going to say, what can someone do with identity? What do they need to do something with it? Your
Facebook account is going to have your first name, last name. It's going to give, mother's maiden name, things like that potentially because you're connected with them. I go over to LinkedIn. I can see your last few employers. And, those are questions that get into, okay, what was your employer? What was your home address? When I'm going through and validating for a credit card application. So when I can put that complete puzzle together, throw in some information from the dark web, maybe credentials or something else, I'm able to go through and completely fill out a credit card application, have that sent to me instead of being sent to you. And next thing you know, in 30, 60 days, you get a bill that you have no idea what it is.
Even as reporters, we're often looking for people. I even recently had someone say, how'd you get my number? Somebody I called who was involved in something, and it wasn't hard to find a phone number.
Information in the internet is super readily available. And you look at the advent of AI, being able to go in there and say, search the internet, and it's searching all of its resources, all the information that it has online and offline, and it can give you a lot of information.
So what do you advise parents to do in terms of if their children are on social media?
Well, one, if you're a parent today, your children are on social media.
Yes.
No matter how many times I tell our 15-year-old not to do certain things, it's more of an inclination he's going to go do those. What we do with our 15-year-old is he has to share all of his passwords with us, so we know what accounts he's on. We're able to, see what he's doing, but also just be aware that they're going to try to hide things. Kids are kids. We all were kids once, and go back. Just imagine if we had that technology when we were 14, 15 years old, and what we would have done with it. And don't be afraid to have the conversations. And I think the most important lesson for youth today is once it's online, don't think that you can just delete it, because it only takes one picture, one screenshot, and it lives forever.
Right, and that can come back to haunt you when you go for a job or go to college, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So, anything else that parents should be aware of?
The other thing with social media, protecting your accounts is a critical aspect. I've seen friends' accounts get hacked on a regular cadence. Enable multi-factor authentication and set long passwords. A traditional 8 password that's in number form only with today's technology can be hacked in seconds. When you go to 11, 12 digits using the 4 strengths, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols, it turns into hundreds, if not thousands of years before that password can be breached.
Someone told me when I go on sites sometimes just say you forgot your password and make up a new one. I don't know, is that I know it's a pain, but is that a good thing?
Password managers really is what everyone should be using. Microsoft has them built into the web browsers. Google has it built in. Even Apple has it built into their Safari browser and their operating system. But use a password manager. Don't use the same password twice. Because if that password's breached, you have to remember every site that you've used that same password, and you want to update it everywhere. And that's really the NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology recommendation, is make stronger, better passwords, and then when they are breached or they show up in a breach report, then you should change them.
Yeah, I know our consumer investigator, Brian Roach, is a big proponent of password managers and is always asking us to use those, so that's a great idea. Well, we'll talk more about if you're a victim of a data breach and what you should do and how you might know coming up.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
We're wrapping up our conversation with Scott Davis, who's the chairman and the president of Cybersecurity Association of Pennsylvania. This has just sped by because you have so much information. We hear a lot nowadays about data breaches, and you get letters in the mail. You've been a victim of a data breach. Your credit is going to be monitored. How do you know, and should that alarm you?
The average person in a year is going to have 4 breaches tied to their information. So one, I wouldn't be overly worried about it. The important thing is if you do receive that letter, look at the organization that's sending it to you, understand what password you're using for there, and reset that password immediately. Most of them are including credit monitoring. You want to take the credit monitoring if you don't already have a service that's watching it, because you do want to keep an eye on your credit and make sure people aren't opening accounts like we talked about earlier.
Why are people doing data breaches? What are they gaining from that?
Well, the world today is powered by data. Every organization, like Facebook's not free because they want to provide a service. They're collecting your data, they're harvesting all that data, and they're selling it to the advertisers that are saying, hey, I want to market to 20 to 26-year-olds in central Pennsylvania that believe in this political ideal. Like, they're collecting this information so they can target those ads to you. And that's how Facebook makes its money. So as far as data really has become king out there, and cyber attackers are looking at that data from your health information, from the watches and medical records that you're storing on your phones, your contact lists, your email boxes, and they're using that to generate other compromises, such as business email compromises, the phishing attack where they can get into a business, reroute money, and ultimately get a payday.
So data has become very valuable to all kinds of companies.
Data is valuable.
A lot of this is very scary. Do you think people should be scared?
We can sit here and I can scare you, and I can go through live examples, and I can show you how easy it really is to go through and hack a device or a car in today's world. They're all smart. But live today. Like, don't be afraid of what you're doing with technology. Just make sure you're securing it, using multi-factor authentication, using long passwords. Take the proactive approach in securing that data. When you get a breach notification, update that credential, update that information so that you're protecting yourself and those other systems that you're using.
What about addresses, that you see, how can you be sure they're secure, and links that you might click on?
Yeah, one, I would never click on a link or scan a QR code because you have no idea where it's going to take you. Always look for the URL and actually go to the web browser, type in www.wgal.com. Go to the website, you're validating it. Every web browser is going to have a little lock icon in the toolbar next to that website address that tells you it's a secure website, it's been certified, authenticated. Some even will turn the entire toolbar green if it's a shopping related site.
So be aware of where you're going and what you're doing. Do you think we're educating our young people enough about all of this?
No, and I think the challenge with our young people is they're ahead of the curve. They're ahead of us. They're experimenting with technologies that only they know and only they have figured out. So it's definitely a cat and mouse game with the young generation, but looking at QR codes, knowing where it's going to take you, looking at social networks and what the new social networks are and how they're sharing videos and connecting people, it's a whole new game.
What about getting into this field like you have done? I imagine that there are a lot of opportunities if young people are looking for that.
There's a ton of opportunities. Cybersecurity still is rapidly growing, and on average, we're still 10 to 15 years behind where we need to be to accurately staff the industry that we have today. And that's something that's growing every year. So cybersecurity is a great field to get involved in. There's college courses, there's certification paths you can go. And when you look at cybersecurity or technology as a whole, it is an entire industry. You can get into being a help desk engineer, you can get into databases, programming. There's 10, 15 different paths that someone could choose from. Find what you're interested in and go for it.
And we haven't even really gotten into AI here as much. That's obviously a big thing that we're hearing a lot about.
Yeah, artificial intelligence, machine learning, it makes discovery of information that much faster. And I think one of the big things when we talk cybersecurity and AI is you can't rely on the old training of looking for misspellings or bad grammar in an email. Because I can go to ChatGPT, have it draft that email, give away tickets, give away Eagles equipment, and it looks well written. It looks like it was designed. I can throw the template onto the page, and I have an email that emotionally connects you to get you to click that link.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
A wealth of information. We appreciate it. Thank you for joining us for WGAL 8 in Focus. For all of us at WGAL, I'm Susan Shapiro. And join us again next Saturday night at 7 o'clock for WGAL 8 in Focus, right after NBC Nightly News. And you can watch each episode of In Focus, plus WGAL's latest newscasts, original programming, and more. Just download the Very Local app and stream for free on Roku and Amazon Fire TV.